My name is Liz, and at 34 years old, I was the business development director who transformed TechVision from a struggling startup into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. After 5 dedicated years, I was finalizing a $320 million deal with Apex Corporation that would change everything. I never imagined the founder would let his spoiled daughter steal my office for her unemployed cousin-in-law, or that their betrayal would lead me to discover their dirty secret that would cost them everything they built. If you are watching this story, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how I turned their betrayal into the perfect opportunity for justice. When I first joined TechVision, we were just 20 people working in a converted warehouse with dreams bigger than our budget. The founder, Richard Hamilton, had created innovative software for supply chain management, but struggled to get major corporations to take us seriously. I was brought in specifically to build those relationships and scale the business. At 34, I had already spent a decade in business development at larger tech firms. But I wanted the challenge and potential equity of helping a promising startup grow. Richard was 60 years old, a brilliant programmer, with a vision but little understanding of enterprise sales. In the beginning, he was the perfect mentor, giving me the freedom to develop our client acquisition strategy while providing the technical expertise to back up my promises. Together, we made a great team. Within my first year, we had tripled our client base and secured our first round of serious venture funding. The offices we worked in reflected our growth. As we expanded, we moved to a beautiful downtown building with actual offices instead of the open warehouse space. After 3 years of bringing in progressively larger clients, I had earned the corner office on the 14th floor. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline and the river beyond. More importantly, it had a private space where I could host potential clients, making them feel valued and allowing for confidential discussions that simply would not work in a conference room where anyone could walk by. That office became my sanctuary and my greatest tool. I decorated it thoughtfully with contemporary art that spoke to innovation, comfortable seating for extended negotiations, and a small bar where I could offer clients a celebratory drink when we closed a deal. Every detail was carefully considered to create the perfect environment for building trust with the corporate executives I needed to impress. My greatest achievement, and the project that earned me that office, was initiating conversations with Apex Corporation, a Fortune 500 company that could transform our business. Apex was the industry leader in global retail distribution, and getting them to even consider our software had taken 6 months of persistent networking, cold calls, and strategic conference appearances. When William Barnes, the chief operating officer of Apex, finally agreed to a meeting, Richard was so impressed, he personally thanked me with champagne and the keys to the corner office. He knew what this could mean for TechVision. For 18 months, I carefully nurtured the relationship with Apex. I studied their business model, identified their pain points, and collaborated with our development team to customize our software to address their specific needs. The process was painstaking, with countless presentations, demonstrations, technical discussions, and negotiations over pricing and implementation. By the 5-year mark of my tenure at TechVision, we had grown to over 100 employees, raised 3 rounds of funding, and were on the cusp of signing a $320 million contract with Apex Corporation. This deal would not only provide us with immediate revenue, but establish TechVision as a serious player in enterprise software. Other major corporations would take notice, and the floodgates would open. 2 weeks before the scheduled signing, everything seemed perfect. Our legal team had reviewed all the contracts, our technical team had passed every security audit Apex required, and William had personally assured me that they were ready to move forward. I had even arranged for a professional photographer to document the signing ceremony, which would be featured in industry publications. It was around this time that Richard introduced a new presence in the office. His daughter Amanda, fresh from completing her MBA at an Ivy League university, joined TechVision as the new Deputy Chief Executive Officer. At 28, she had no real-world business experience, but Richard proudly told everyone that she represented the future of the company and would one day take over his position. I tried to be welcoming, giving Amanda a comprehensive overview of our business development strategy and the history of our relationship with Apex. She nodded politely during my presentations, but seemed more interested in the perks of her new position than the details of our business. Her office, while spacious, was in the interior of the building, without the views and client-friendly atmosphere of mine. A week after Amanda joined, Richard hosted a celebration at his home for the leadership team. The mood was jubilant as we anticipated the Apex signing. While giving Amanda a tour of the house, I noticed her watching me carefully, measuring my interactions with her father and the other executives. When Richard toasted my success with the Apex deal, a flash of something crossed her face. It might have been jealousy, or perhaps calculation. At the time, I dismissed it as my imagination. As the evening wound down, I overheard Amanda asking her father about office assignments. He responded that executive offices were assigned based on seniority and strategic needs, with client-facing roles like mine requiring appropriate spaces for meetings. Amanda glanced over at me, then back to the impressive view from her father's home that overlooked the same river as my office. She said nothing, but the look in her eyes made me uneasy. She was looking at me the way a predator watches prey, assessing vulnerabilities and planning an attack. I should have recognized the danger then. Instead, I was so focused on finalizing the details for the Apex signing that I missed the warning signs. I had no idea that Amanda had already set in motion a plan that would upend everything I had worked for, a plan that began with taking what I had earned and ended with pushing me out entirely. That evening, as guests departed, Amanda paused beside me at the door. With a smile that never reached her eyes, she said, "I have so many ideas for changes once the Apex deal is done. I cannot wait to put my own stamp on things." The emphasis on my sent a chill through me. But I was still riding high on our impending success and could not imagine how quickly everything would fall apart. The morning that changed everything started like any other. I arrived at the office at 7:30, a full hour before most of the team, to prepare for a video conference with the Apex technical team. We needed to finalize some integration details before the contract signing the following week. I had just settled at my desk reviewing my presentation notes while enjoying my morning coffee when my door swung open without a knock. Amanda stood there wearing an expensive designer suit and a cold smile that immediately set off alarm bells. Behind her was a young man I had never seen before, looking awkward and slightly embarrassed. "Good morning, Liz," Amanda said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I need you to pack up your things today." I stared at her, certain I had misheard. "Excuse me." "My husband's cousin gets your office," she announced, gesturing to the man behind her. "Pack your things." The man gave an uncomfortable wave. "Hi, I'm Marcus," he said, his eyes darting around the office appreciatively. I set my coffee down carefully, trying to process what was happening. "Amanda, I have the Apex integration team calling in less than an hour. We have the contract signing next week. This office is essential for client meetings." Amanda shrugged, examining her manicured nails. "Marcus will be handling special projects for us, and he needs appropriate space. You can use the shared workspace on the 10th floor for your call today. It is already setting up equipment for you." My heart raced as I realized this was actually happening. "Does your father know about this?" "This is completely inappropriate timing. The Apex deal needs continuity." "It was Dad's idea," she replied, her smile widening at my distress. "He agrees that Marcus needs proper accommodation. The shared workspace will be fine for your needs temporarily." I grabbed my phone and immediately called Richard's extension. He answered on the first ring, which told me he was expecting my call. "Richard, there must be some mistake. Amanda is saying I need to vacate my office immediately in the middle of the Apex preparations." His response was measured but firm. "Liz, we need to accommodate Marcus. He represents potential investment opportunities that could be valuable for our next growth phase. Richard, we have the Apex team calling in an hour. The $320 million deal signing is next week. Changing offices now sends a terrible message about stability." "The deal is already secured," he dismissed. Marcus needs to establish himself, and that corner office makes the right impression. Your temporary relocation won't affect anything substantial." I could not believe what I was hearing. After 5 years of dedication, after building the relationship that would transform the company, I was being displaced for the cousin of Amanda's husband, a person who had contributed nothing to Tech Vision. "Who exactly is Marcus?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "What role is he taking in the company?" Richard paused before answering. "He will be our new strategic investments advisor. He has connections that could be very beneficial." "What are his qualifications?" I pressed. "What experience does he have with enterprise software or venture capital?" "His qualifications are not your concern," Richard replied, his tone suddenly cold. "Please cooperate with the transition, Liz. We appreciate all your work on the Apex deal, but company needs evolve." The call ended, leaving me standing in what was apparently no longer my office, facing Amanda's triumphant expression and Marcus's awkward attempt to look anywhere but at me. "The moving team will be here in 15 minutes, Amanda said. "They will help transfer your personal items to your new space." She handed me a keycard. 10th floor west section. Workstation 14. Your login credentials remain the same." I was too shocked to argue further. With mechanical movements, I began gathering my personal items. Photos of my family awards I had received, the special fountain pen William from Apex had given me after our first successful demonstration. Each item represented a memory, an achievement now being boxed up like they meant nothing. Word spread quickly. As I packed, Jasmine from marketing appeared at my door, her expression horrified. "Liz, what's happening? Why are you packing up?" Before I could answer, Amanda interjected. "Just a strategic reallocation of resources. Liz is moving to a collaborative workspace that better aligns with our evolving company culture." Jasmine looked from Amanda to me, clearly not buying the corporate jargon. "Can I help you carry anything?" she offered. "That won't be necessary," Amanda cut in. "We have professional movers coming." After Amanda walked away to show Marcus around his new office, Jasmine whispered, "This is ridiculous. Everyone knows you built the Apex relationship. What is Richard thinking?" "Apparently family connections trump 5 years of proven results," I replied, the bitterness impossible to hide. Michael from the development team stopped by, next, his face reflecting the same disbelief. "Liz, the team is buzzing about this. It makes no sense. Do you want me to talk to Richard? The technical team will back you up about needing proper space for client communications." I appreciated his support but knew it would be futile. Richard made the decision personally. But thank you, Michael. The movers arrived, efficient and impersonal, boxing everything with assembly line precision. Amanda supervised, making notes on her tablet, occasionally directing them to leave certain items that apparently belonged to the office rather than to me. These included an expensive ergonomic chair I had purchased myself and artwork I had selected. The worst part was walking through the office with my personal effects in boxes past the curious and concerned gazes of colleagues who had witnessed my contributions over the years. Some averted their eyes, uncomfortable with the public humiliation. Others offered sympathetic glances but said nothing, afraid of jeopardizing their own positions. By 10:30, I was installed at a desk in an open workspace surrounded by junior analysts and new hires. My video conference with the Apex team had to be rescheduled because the shared conference room I had been promised was already booked. William sent a concerned email asking if everything was all right at Tech Vision, noting the unusual rescheduling so close to the contract signing. From my new workspace, I could see into the executive floor through the glass partitions. Marcus was settling into my former office, admiring the view I had earned through years of performance. Amanda was with him, pointing out features of the space and laughing together like old friends. During my lunch break, I did some discreet research on Marcus Bailey. He was 30 years old, with a spotty employment history, bouncing between family businesses and brief stints at companies where he inevitably had connections. His LinkedIn profile listed him as an entrepreneurial consultant, but showed no specific accomplishments or qualifications. There was nothing in his background to suggest he could provide valuable investment connections for a technology company on the verge of a major enterprise deal. As I watched him take possession of the office, I had earned arranging his golf trophies on shelves that had held my industry awards. One thing became crystal clear: this was not a business decision. It was personal, and it was just the beginning. The next week was pure professional torture. My temporary workstation in the shared space meant every call, every strategy, discussion, every sensitive conversation about the Apex deal had to be conducted with an audience of curious junior staff members. Privacy was non-existent, and productivity plummeted as I constantly searched for available meeting rooms for calls that required confidentiality. 3 days after my relocation, I had scheduled a critical video meeting with William and his implementation team from Apex. With all conference rooms booked, I had to conduct the call from my open workstation using headphones, which meant I could not display the technical diagrams our team had prepared on a proper screen. Halfway through the call, a group of marketing interns began a loud brainstorming session at the adjacent cluster of desks. William noticed immediately. "Liz, are you in a new location? It seems rather busy around you." I tried to maintain professionalism, just some temporary arrangements while we reconfigure our office space. Nothing that impacts our commitment to the Apex implementation. His frown was visible even through the video feed. It is unusual to see such significant changes so close to contract finalization. Is everything stable at TechVision? Our board is particularly concerned with organizational continuity when selecting long-term partners. Before I could respond, my screen suddenly displayed an incoming call from Marcus, who had apparently been added to all Apex-related communications without my knowledge. I had to awkwardly explain his role to William, who seemed increasingly concerned. "Perhaps we should schedule an in-person meeting next week," William suggested. "I would like to meet these new team members who will be involved in our partnership." After the call, I went directly to Richard's office only to find Amanda there instead. She was seated in his chair reviewing documents that appeared to be related to the Apex contract. "Where is Richard?" I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "Dad is meeting with investors today. Is there something I can help with?" Her tone was professionally polite, but her eyes were cold. "William Barnes from Apex is concerned about the organizational changes happening right before the contract signing. He has requested an in-person meeting to meet Marcus and understand his role." Amanda's expression tightened momentarily before she recovered her composure. "That will not be a problem. Marcus and I can handle the meeting." "With all due respect, Amanda, I have built this relationship for 18 months. William is expecting continuity." "And he will have it," she replied smoothly. "You will attend as well, of course, but it is important that Marcus begins taking a more active role. After all, once the contract is signed, we will be restructuring the account management approach." Her words sent a chill through me. Restructuring how exactly? This is the first I am hearing of any changes to account management. Amanda smiled. "Marcus has some innovative ideas about resource allocation and client relationship management. We believe a fresh approach will maximize the opportunity with Apex." "Those decisions should include me," I insisted. "I know what Apex needs and expects." "Your input has been valuable in getting us to this point," she said, emphasizing the past tense. "But companies evolve, and so do roles." Speaking of which, Marcus has reviewed the contract and has some suggested modifications to the terms. Modifications. The terms are finalized. Legal has approved everything and Apex is satisfied with the agreement as it stands. Changing anything now could delay or even jeopardize the signing. Amanda handed me a document with red line changes throughout. "These adjustments will be more advantageous to TechVision. The implementation timeline is extended by 2 months. The payment schedule is accelerated, and we have added exclusivity clauses that prevent Apex from working with our competitors." I scanned the document in horror. These changes completely contradict what we have negotiated with Apex. Williams specifically requested the original timeline because it aligns with their fiscal year planning. The payment schedule was carefully structured to coincide with their budget allocation process, and they have explicitly refused exclusivity in all previous discussions. Marcus believes they will accept these terms because they have already invested so much time in the process, Amanda stated confidently. Based on what experience I demanded. Has Marcus ever negotiated an enterprise software contract? Does he have any relationship with Apex executives, any understanding of their internal processes? Amanda's professional facade slipped for a moment. Marcus has the full confidence of this company's leadership. That should be sufficient for you. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. Amanda, I am trying to protect the deal we have worked so hard to secure. Making these changes now, especially without consulting me first, puts the entire relationship at risk. The changes have already been sent to their legal team, she said dismissively. Dad approved them this morning. I left her office in a state of disbelief, immediately calling William's direct line. It went to voicemail. I sent an urgent email requesting a call to discuss the contract revisions, emphasizing that I had not been consulted on the changes. An hour later, William called back. His normally friendly tone was now formal and concerned. Liz, we received some unexpected contract revisions this morning. Our legal team is reviewing them, but I must say they appear to substantially alter the terms we had agreed upon. William, I need to be completely transparent with you, I said. Those changes were not initiated by me. They were made by new team members without my knowledge or input. There was a pause on the line. This is concerning Liz. We have built this relationship on trust and consistency. These kinds of last-minute changes combined with the apparent reorganization happening there raise red flags for us. I completely understand. Is there any way we can meet in person to discuss this? I value our relationship and want to ensure we address any concerns. I can meet tomorrow afternoon, he offered. But Liz, I need to be clear that significant organizational changes or attempts to alter agreed-upon terms at this stage could impact our decision to proceed. After hanging up, I found myself increasingly isolated at TechVision. Colleagues who had previously been friendly now kept their distance, sensing that I had fallen from favor with the leadership. Even Jasmine and Michael, while still supportive in private, were careful not to be seen advocating for me too publicly. Through careful observation and conversations with administrative staff, I began piecing together what was really happening. Marcus was not an investor or even connected to potential funding sources as Richard had claimed. He was simply an unemployed relative who needed a job. Amanda had convinced her father to create a position for him, and my office with its prestige and view was part of the package. But the most devastating discovery came later that week. While working late to prepare for the meeting with William, I overheard a conversation between Amanda and Richard in the break room. They did not realize I was still in the office working from a secluded corner of the shared workspace. Once the Apex contract is signed, we need to transition Liz out completely, Amanda was saying. Marcus can take over the account with my guidance. She has been valuable in getting us to this point, Richard replied, echoing Amanda's earlier words to me. Are you sure we can manage the relationship without her? Marcus and I have reviewed all her notes and correspondence, Amanda assured him. We understand the Apex dynamics now. Besides, they will be contractually committed. Where else would they go after investing so much in the integration process? What about the other accounts Liz manages? We will distribute them among the team. No one is irreplaceable, Dad. And honestly, having someone with her level of influence who is not family is a risk as we prepare for potential acquisition talks next year. As I listened to them, casually discussing disposing of me after 5 years of dedication, after I had built the relationship that was about to transform their company, something broke inside me. The loyalty I had felt, the pride in what we were building together, evaporated instantly. They were not just taking my office or undermining my authority. They were planning to take credit for my work, profit from my relationships, and then discard me when I was no longer useful. All to benefit a family member who had contributed nothing. In that moment, sitting alone in the darkened office, while they plotted my professional demise, I made a decision. I would not go quietly. I had earned my place, my success, and my reputation. If they wanted to destroy that, they would face consequences they never anticipated. The morning of the meeting with William, the first arrived early to prepare only to find an email from Richard requesting my presence in his office immediately. The tone was curt, offering no explanation. When I entered his office, Richard was seated behind his desk, with Amanda standing beside him, both wearing expressions that could only be described as smug. Marcus lounged in a chair to the side, playing with his phone, seemingly bored by the proceedings. "Close the door, please," Richard instructed. His voice was formal, devoid of the warmth that had characterized our early working relationship. I complied, then stood before his desk, noting that no chair had been offered to me. "You wanted to see me." Richard cleared his throat. "Liz, we need to discuss your future with TechVision. After careful consideration of our organizational needs and strategic direction, we have determined that your position is no longer aligned with our vision." The words hung in the air for a moment, before their meaning fully registered. "You are firing me 1 week before the Apex contract signing." "We prefer to call it a strategic reorganization," Amanda interjected. "Your contributions have been appreciated, but we are moving in a different direction that requires a fresh approach to client relationships." My mind raced, connecting the dots to the conversation I had overheard. They were accelerating their timeline, eliminating me before the contract was signed rather than after. Something must have changed. "What about the meeting with William today? He is expecting me to be there." "We will handle that meeting," Richard stated. "Marcus will be taking over the Apex account effective immediately." Marcus finally looked up from his phone, offering a half-hearted wave. "No hard feelings, right? Business is business." I stared at him incredulously. This person who had contributed nothing was now taking credit for 18 months of my work, and Richard, who had once valued my expertise enough to give me the corner office, was allowing it. "William specifically requested my presence," I pointed out. "He has concerns about the continuity of our relationship. We will explain that you have decided to pursue other opportunities," Amanda said smoothly. "These transitions happen all the time in business." Effective immediately, I questioned, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain professional. Without any transition period, without allowing me to properly hand off client relationships I have built for years. Richard had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but his resolve did not waver. "Our legal team has prepared a separation agreement. You will receive 2 weeks of severance pay in exchange for a smooth transition and a non-disparagement clause." 2 weeks. After 5 years of building this company's client base, after securing the largest contract in company history, "Your compensation has been more than fair over the years," Amanda cut in. "The severance is standard policy." Richard pushed a document across the desk. "Your company accounts have already been deactivated. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings." The finality of it struck me like a physical blow. 5 years of dedication erased in a single meeting. No transition, no acknowledgement of my contributions, not even the professional courtesy of letting me say goodbye to colleagues or clients. And if I refused to sign this agreement, I asked, not touching the document. "Then you forfeit the severance payment," Richard replied. "Either way, your employment is terminated effective immediately." I looked from Richard to Amanda, to Marcus, taking in the tableau of betrayal before me. Richard, who had once been a mentor, now unable to meet my eyes. Amanda barely concealing her triumph. Marcus already calculating how to redecorate my former office. "You do realize that firing the person who built the Apex relationship 1 week before the contract signing might raise red flags with them," I said finally. "We have reviewed all your notes and correspondence," Amanda repeated, echoing what she had told her father. "We understand the relationship dynamics and are fully prepared to move forward without you." The arrogance was breathtaking. They truly believed they could simply step in and take credit for the relationships and trust I had meticulously built over years. A security guard appeared at the door carrying a plastic bin. "For your personal items," he explained awkwardly. I looked at the bin, then back at Richard. "You are having me escorted out. Like a criminal." "It is standard procedure for technical staff," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I built half your client base," I reminded him, my voice dangerously quiet. "I am not technical staff. who might steal code or data. Nevertheless, protocols must be followed, Amanda insisted. The security team will accompany you to your workstation and then to the exit. I left the document unsigned on the desk. Keep your 2 weeks of severance. It is not worth signing away my right to tell the truth about how this company treats the people who built it. As I turned to leave, Richard called after me. Liz, do not make this more difficult than it needs to be. Your career in this industry depends on maintaining professional relationships. The threat was thinly veiled. Sign our agreement, stay quiet, or we will damage your professional reputation. The security guard, clearly uncomfortable with his assignment, followed me to my workstation, where I collected the few personal items I had brought to the shared space. Colleagues watched in shocked silence as I was escorted through the office like a thief. Jasmine tried to approach, but another security guard stepped between us. No contact with employees during exit proceedings, he stated mechanically. This is how they thank people who build their business, Jasmine. I said loudly enough for others to hear. Remember that when they ask for your loyalty. The elevator ride to the lobby was silent and tense. As we reached the ground floor, the guard handed me a sealed envelope. Your final paycheck and exit paperwork, he explained. Please surrender your building access card. As I handed over my access card, I noticed a document that had fallen from the envelope. It appeared to be an internal memo about facility compliance issues. Normally, I would have pointed this out, but something made me pick it up and glance at it before the guard noticed. The memo addressed to Richard noted that TechVision's operating license for the building had expired 3 months ago, and that multiple fire safety violations had been identified during a recent inspection. The facilities manager had flagged it as urgent with a recommendation to address the issues before the next city inspection. I slipped the paper into my pocket as the guard turned to hold the door open for me. In the chaos of my termination, no one would miss one internal memo. Standing on the sidewalk outside the TechVision, building the company I had helped build for 5 years, I felt a curious sense of calm, replace my initial shock and anger. Richard and Amanda believed they had all the power that they could discard me without consequences. They were wrong. Looking down at the memo in my hand, a single word formed in my mind as a plan began to take shape. Perfect. I spent the remainder of that day researching city regulations for commercial buildings and business operating licenses. The memo I had inadvertently taken revealed that TechVision was operating with an expired license and unaddressed safety violations, but I needed to understand the potential consequences before taking any action. My research led me to the city's municipal code website, where I discovered that operating a business without a valid license was not just a technical violation, but could result in immediate closure and substantial fines. Similarly, unaddressed safety violations, particularly fire code issues in a high-rise building, could trigger an emergency inspection and potential shutdown. With this knowledge, I considered my next move carefully. A direct report to city authorities might seem suspicious coming from a recently terminated employee. I needed someone with official standing who could initiate an inspection based on legitimate concerns. That evening, I remembered meeting Ben Thompson, a senior building inspector for the city at a charity event the previous year. We had chatted about the challenges of maintaining older buildings up to code while preserving their historical character. Ben had been passionate about safety regulations, not as bureaucratic red tape, but as essential protections for workers and the public. I found his business card in my contacts and called him the next morning, identifying myself as someone seeking guidance on commercial building regulations. Ben, this is Liz Wilson. We met at the Historic Preservation Foundation fundraiser last year. I have some questions about commercial building licenses, if you have a moment. He remembered me and was happy to provide general information. I carefully framed my questions as hypothetical scenarios. If a company is operating in a commercial building with an expired license, what are the potential consequences? Ben's response was detailed and concerning. Operating without a valid license is a serious violation. If reported, it would trigger an immediate inspection. If confirmed, the business could face an emergency shutdown until the license is renewed, plus fines ranging from $5,000 to $20,000 depending on the duration of the violation. And what about safety violations, specifically fire code issues that have been identified but not addressed? That is even more serious, he explained. Fire code violations in a high-rise building can result in immediate stop work orders if they present clear dangers to occupants. The city takes these particularly seriously after the Westland Tower incident 3 years ago. I remembered the incident he referenced where a small fire in a downtown high-rise had led to smoke inhalation injuries because of malfunctioning emergency systems. Hypothetically, I continued, if someone had documentation showing both an expired license and unaddressed safety violations, what would be the proper reporting procedure? There was a pause on the line. Liz, are we still speaking hypothetically here? I took a deep breath. Not entirely. I recently left a company that I believe is operating with an expired license and has ignored safety warnings. I happened to see documentation confirming this before my departure. I see, Ben said carefully. Was your departure voluntary? No, I admitted. I was terminated without cause, which is why I am hesitant to file a formal complaint myself. It could appear retaliatory. That is understandable. Would you be willing to share which company this involves? Tech Vision in the Riverside Tower downtown. There was a sharp intake of breath. Riverside Tower is one of our older buildings. Safety compliance there is especially important due to the original design limitations. The memo I saw mentioned expired fire suppression certifications and emergency exit lighting issues, among other violations. Those are serious concerns, Ben confirmed. Look, I cannot promise anything specific, but I can tell you that I am scheduled to conduct inspections in that area next week. I could prioritize that building based on this information. Would my name need to be involved? I asked. Not necessarily. We receive anonymous tips regularly, and with specific information like expired licenses, we have cause to investigate without identifying sources. I considered my next words carefully. There is something else you should know. Tech Vision is scheduled to sign a major contract with Apex Corporation tomorrow afternoon. Executives from Apex will be on site for the signing. Why is that relevant to the inspection? Ben asked. It is not, I admitted. But if there are legitimate safety concerns or licensing issues, would not visitors to the building have a right to know? Ben was silent for a moment. Liz, I understand you may have legitimate grievances with your former employer, but our inspections are strictly about safety compliance, not timing them to cause maximum disruption to business operations. Of course, I agreed quickly. I just thought all relevant information should be shared. Despite his professional caution, I could tell Ben was concerned about the violations I had described. After some further discussion of the specific issues mentioned in the memo, he agreed to look into the matter promptly. I cannot promise when an inspection might occur, he said, but I take these potential violations seriously, especially in an older building with high occupancy. After ending the call, I received a text message from Jasmine, who had reached out despite the awkwardness of my departure. Apex execs arriving at 2 p.m. tomorrow for final meeting and contract signing. Everyone in panic mode prepping. Marcus completely clueless about implementation timeline. Thought you should know. I sent a brief thanks, then checked the city inspector's published protocols online. According to their procedures, if significant violations were found during an inspection, a stop work order could be posted immediately, and the building manager would be required to address all critical safety issues before normal operations could resume. The timing would be crucial. If Ben conducted his inspection before the Apex executives arrived, Richard and Amanda would have time to possibly mitigate the situation or move the signing to another location. If the inspection happened after the signing, the damage to Tech Vision would be minimal since the contract would already be secured. But if the inspection coincided with the Apex team's arrival, I sent one more text to Jasmine. What entrance will the Apex team be using tomorrow? Main lobby north entrance. Richard wants full reception display, she replied. With that final piece of information, I had everything I needed. I carefully drafted an email to Ben with specific details from the memo, including the exact language about the expired license and safety violations. I emphasized the potential risk to building occupants without mentioning anything about the timing of the Apex meeting. After sending the email, I placed a call to the city's anonymous building safety hotline, reporting concerns about Riverside Tower's fire suppression systems and expired certifications. I disguised my voice slightly and did not leave any contact information. With these actions complete, all I could do was wait and see if the city would take action. I had provided legitimate information about actual violations. What happened next was in the hands of the official inspection process. That evening, I prepared carefully for the next day. I wanted to be nearby when everything unfolded, but not so close that I would be connected to the events. I selected a cafe across the street from TechVision's building, one with large windows and an outdoor seating area that offered a clear view of the main entrance. As I laid out my clothes for the next day, I felt a curious mix of emotions. There was anger at the betrayal. I had experienced satisfaction at the potential consequences Richard and Amanda might face, but also a twinge of sadness for the colleagues who might be affected by any disruption. People like Jasmine and Michael who had shown me kindness. But Richard and Amanda had made their choice when they decided that loyalty and contribution meant nothing compared to family connections. They had chosen to discard me without a second thought to take credit for my work while planning my removal all along. Actions had consequences, and tomorrow they would learn that valuable lesson. I set my alarm for early morning planning to be in position well before any potential inspection or the arrival of the Apex team. As I drifted to sleep, I found myself surprisingly calm. Whatever happened tomorrow, I had stood up for myself in the face of injustice. That alone was a victory worth savoring. I arrived at the cafe across from Riverside Tower at 7:30 the next morning, selecting a table on the outdoor patio with an unobstructed view of TechVision's main entrance. Ordering a coffee and breakfast sandwich to justify my extended stay, I settled in with my laptop appearing to be just another professional working remotely. The morning proceeded normally at first. Employees streamed into the building, many looking harried as they prepared for the important day ahead. Around 9:45, I spotted Amanda arriving dressed in an expensive suit and directing staff who carried flower arrangements and promotional displays into the lobby. They were clearly preparing an impressive reception for the Apex executives. At 10:30, a city vehicle pulled up in front of the building. My heart raced as Ben stepped out accompanied by two other inspectors in official uniforms. They carried tablets and inspection equipment, appearing thoroughly professional as they entered the building. Through the large glass windows of the lobby, I could see the receptionist's confused expression as she spoke with the inspection team. She made several phone calls, looking increasingly concerned with each one. Minutes later, Amanda appeared in the lobby, her body language shifting from confident to agitated as she spoke with Ben. The inspection team did not linger in the lobby. Led by a reluctant-looking building manager, they disappeared into the elevator, presumably to begin their assessment. Amanda remained behind, frantically making calls on her cell phone. For the next 2 hours, there was little visible activity from my vantage point. I ordered lunch and continued my pretense of working, all while keeping a careful eye on the building entrance. Shortly after noon, the inspection team reappeared in the lobby. Ben was writing something on an official-looking form while the building manager gestured animatedly. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Ben approached the main entrance and affixed a large orange notice to the glass doors. Even from across the street, the bold black letters were clearly visible: "Stop Work Order." Amanda rushed to the doors, reading the notice with visible distress. The building manager continued arguing with the other inspectors, but their professional demeanor made it clear that the decision was final. Employees gathered in the lobby, confusion and concern evident on their faces as word spread about what was happening. At 1:30, Richard arrived, moving with urgency as he entered the building. Through the glass, I could see the animated discussion between him, Amanda, and the building manager. Richard's face grew increasingly red as he gestured toward the notice on the door. Just before 2 o'clock, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. William Barnes stepped out, accompanied by two other Apex executives and their legal counsel. They approached the entrance only to stop short upon seeing the bright orange notice. Ben, who had remained on site, intercepted the Apex team. Though I could not hear their conversation, it was clear he was explaining the situation. William's expression shifted from confusion to concern as he looked through the glass doors at the chaotic scene inside. Richard burst through the doors to greet William with Amanda close behind. Even from my position, their desperate attempts to minimize the situation were evident. Richard gestured toward a nearby restaurant, apparently suggesting an alternate meeting location. William and his team looked skeptical, conferring among themselves. What happened next confirmed the success of my plan. Marcus emerged from the building, apparently sent to help convince the Apex team to proceed with the meeting. His lack of preparation was immediately apparent as he introduced himself awkwardly, clearly unable to answer basic questions from the Apex executives. Amanda pulled Marcus aside, whispering furiously in his ear. He nodded and approached William again, only to be met with increasingly skeptical expressions from the Apex team. Through the cafe window, I watched as the scene unfolded exactly as I had hoped. The Apex team's body language showed growing concern and distrust. William checked his watch repeatedly, speaking with increasing firmness to Richard, who appeared to be making desperate assurances. Then came the defining moment. Amanda, clearly panicked, ran back into the building, returning moments later with what appeared to be the contract documents. She held them out to William, who made no move to take them. Instead, he shook his head firmly, said something brief to Richard, and gestured for his team to return to their vehicle. As the Apex team climbed back into their SUV, Richard made one last attempt to salvage the situation, physically placing himself in front of William. Whatever he said had no effect. William politely but firmly stepped around him and entered the vehicle, which promptly pulled away from the curb. Richard stood on the sidewalk, watching the SUV disappear into traffic, the $320 million deal literally driving away before his eyes. Beside him, Amanda was berating Marcus, who looked completely overwhelmed by the situation. The chaos continued to unfold throughout the afternoon. Employees began exiting the building, many carrying their personal belongings, suggesting they had been sent home due to the stop work order. Through the lobby windows, I could see Richard in intense conversation with city officials, presumably trying to negotiate a resolution that would allow them to resume operations. Around 4 o'clock, news vans arrived, setting up outside the building. A local reporter approached the entrance, recording the stop work notice before attempting to enter the lobby. Security guards prevented their access, but the mere presence of media indicated that word of TechVision's compliance issues had spread beyond just the immediate situation. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. Complete disaster here. Apex walked away from the deal, Richard blaming everyone. Amanda screaming about sabotage. Marcus hiding in your old office. Where are you? I replied simply, safe. Take care of yourself. As evening approached, I finally left the cafe satisfied with what I had witnessed. I had not directly caused TechVision's problems. I had merely ensured that their own negligence and violations were discovered at the most inopportune moment. Their disregard for proper licensing and safety regulations had done the real damage. My role had simply been to ensure that their shortcuts and violations came to light when it mattered most. Later that evening, my phone lit up with missed calls and messages from Richard, Amanda, and even Marcus. I ignored them all except for one voicemail from Richard that I could not resist listening to. Liz, this is Richard. I do not know if you had anything to do with what happened today, but if you did, this is not over. You have potentially damaged a company that gave you opportunities for 5 years. We will be investigating this fully, and there will be consequences if we find you were involved. His threats meant nothing. I had not fabricated violations or made false reports. I had simply ensured that legitimate safety concerns were properly investigated by the appropriate authorities. If Richard wanted to pursue the matter, he would only draw more attention to his company's failures to maintain proper licensing and safety standards. As I prepared for bed that night, I felt no regret. Richard and Amanda had shown me exactly how much they valued loyalty and contribution when they discarded me without a second thought. Today, they had learned that actions have consequences, and that the people they dismiss so casually might not simply disappear as expected. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I could sleep peacefully, knowing that justice in its own way had been served. 1 month after the disastrous day at TechVision, I sat in my new office watching the rain trace patterns down the floor to ceiling windows. Unlike my corner office at TechVision, this one overlooked a quiet courtyard rather than the river. But it was mine earned through respect rather than nepotism, and that made all the difference. The aftermath of TechVision's compliance disaster had been swift and far-reaching. Their stop work order had remained in effect for 8 business days while they scrambled to address the numerous safety violations and renew their expired operating license. During that time, employees worked remotely where possible, but the disruption was significant. More damaging than the temporary closure was the complete collapse of the Apex deal. William Barnes had issued a formal statement withdrawing from the contract negotiations, citing concerns about TechVision's operational stability and regulatory compliance. The $320 million deal that would have transformed the company had evaporated overnight. The financial markets reacted accordingly. TechVision's stock, which had been climbing in anticipation of the Apex announcement, plummeted by 34% in 2 days. Industry analysts published scathing assessments, questioning the company's internal controls and management competence. Richard had attempted damage control, issuing statements about temporary compliance issues and continued commitment to enterprise partnerships. But the damage was done. Within weeks, 3 other major clients had initiated reviews of their contracts with TechVision, citing the Apex withdrawal as a concerning development. The internal fallout had been equally dramatic. According to Jasmine, who still kept me updated, nearly 20% of the staff had resigned in the wake of the crisis, including several senior developers and account managers. The toxic combination of operational disruption and leadership blame shifting had shattered morale. As for Amanda and Marcus, their triumphant takeover had been short-lived. The board of directors, alarmed by the stock price collapse and client concerns, had demanded accountability. Richard had been forced to remove Amanda from her executive role, reassigning her to a nebulous special projects position with no actual authority. Marcus had been quietly let go his brief tenure as strategic investments advisor, ending without a single investment secured. While TechVision struggled, my own professional journey had taken an unexpected positive turn. 2 weeks after the incident, I had received a call from Teresa Gardner, the CEO of Innovate Systems, TechVision's main competitor. "I heard about your departure from TechVision," she had said, "and I have also heard about your impressive track record building their enterprise client relationships. We would like to discuss a potential role for you here." The position Teresa offered was Senior Vice President of Enterprise Solutions, with compensation 30% higher than what I had received at TechVision, and equity options that recognized my experience and potential contribution. I accepted without hesitation. Even more surprising was the call I received from William Barnes 3 days after starting at Innovate. "Liz, I was very disappointed to lose contact with you during the TechVision situation," he began. "Your professionalism and understanding of our needs was the primary reason we had pursued that partnership." "Thank you, William. I appreciate that recognition," I replied, careful not to disparage my former employer despite everything that had happened. "I understand you have joined Innovate Systems," he continued. "We would be interested in discussing potential collaboration opportunities. The needs that drove us toward TechVision still exist, and we value working with partners who demonstrate stability and integrity." Within weeks, I was leading discussions for a $250 million partnership between Apex and Innovate, with strong support from both leadership teams. The foundation I had built over 18 months with Apex had not been wasted after all, just redirected toward a company that valued professional relationships and ethical operations. My new team at Innovate included familiar faces. Jasmine had joined the marketing department, and Michael now led a development team focused on enterprise solutions. Both had reached out after the TechVision implosion, seeking opportunities in a healthier environment. I had been happy to recommend them, knowing their talent and integrity firsthand. As for Richard, His position as founder had protected him from immediate removal, but industry rumors suggested the board was actively searching for a new chief executive officer. The company he had built over decades was now damaged by his decision to prioritize family connections over meritocracy and proper governance. Did I feel any satisfaction in TechVision's struggles? The honest answer was complicated. I took no joy in the difficulties faced by former colleagues who had done nothing wrong, but I did feel vindicated that Richard and Amanda had faced consequences for their actions. The lesson they had learned about valuing loyalty and contribution had been expensive but necessary. My own journey had taught me several powerful lessons. First, that my worth was not determined by one company or one relationship. The skills and reputation I had built over years remained mine, transferable to new opportunities. Second, I had learned about standing up for myself in the face of injustice, not through petty revenge or fabricated claims, but by ensuring that legitimate issues came to light. TechVision's problems stem from their own negligence and shortcuts, not from my actions in reporting them. Perhaps most importantly, I had gained clarity about the kind of leader I wanted to be. In my new position at Innovate, I made sure that contributions were recognized, that decisions were based on merit rather than connections, and that we maintained impeccable compliance with all regulations and safety standards. The corner office I now occupied represented not just professional success, but a personal philosophy. On the wall hung a small framed quote that summarized what I had learned through this challenging experience. Your value is not diminished by someone's inability to see your worth. Richard and Amanda had failed to see my worth, and that failure had cost them dearly. Meanwhile, I had moved forward, bringing my talents to an organization that appreciated them and building something stronger and more ethical in the process. As I prepared for the final meeting with Apex to sign our new partnership agreement, I thought about how differently things might have turned out if Richard had simply respected the contributions of those who built his business. The lesson was clear. True leadership means valuing people for their contributions, not their connections. And that was a lesson I would carry forward in every decision I made as a leader myself. Have you ever experienced a situation where your contributions were overlooked, or someone tried to take credit for your hard work? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to be reminded of their own value. Remember, sometimes when one door closes, it is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of something better. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to stand up for yourself when faced with injustice in your own life.